It's a short week for the Miami Dolphins. They travel to Buffalo to take on the Bills on Thursday Night Football. And we got some major updates heading into this Week 3 game, specifically around the head coach, because apparently Mike McDaniel and the owner, Stephen Ross, briefly talked after Week 2. We got some other injury news and updates around rookies here on this episode. But I want to thank you, everybody who has joined the channel recently. We just crossed 74K subscribers, currently at 74,345. I'd like to get to 74,500 before game day on Thursday, and then hopefully we can hit 75K on game day. Daily Dolphins content live for every game and 2 live shows outside of game days as well. Join the channel for daily Dolphins updates. All right, Mike McDaniel spoke to Dolphins media today, as he does every day after a game, and he had an interesting insight on how he talked with owner Stephen Ross. And this is exactly what McDaniel said about his conversation with Ross. He said, "We talked about the game after the game in preparation week for Buffalo, in step with what I talked to the team about. We felt we could win the game and didn't. We talked about the short week in Buffalo." Now, he might say that they only talked about how close they were to winning that Week 2 game. And maybe they did just talk about how they're going to get ready and prepare for Week 3 against Buffalo. But I got to be honest, I have a hard time believing that to be true. You mean to tell me Ross isn't applying a little bit of pressure to McDaniel? Like, even if it's just a one-off comment, why wouldn't Ross say, "Come on, Mike, we got to turn the season around"? Even something like that, where maybe it's very brief, maybe it's very minor, but it puts it in the back of McDaniel's head, there needs to be urgency here. Because if the season isn't turned around and you have another embarrassing loss against the Bills this Thursday, your job might no longer be held this following game in Week 4. So I don't know, be sure, I'm speculating, but I do have to imagine there had to be some sort of comment made by Stephen Ross, and if there was not, that's an issue. All right, we're going to not harp on that too much longer. We're going to move to some injury updates here around Miami, and there was a positive one around Austin Jackson, who was placed on IR right before Week 2, which means he was at minimum out Weeks 2, 3, 4, and 5, putting him potentially on track to return Week 6. Well, McDaniel actually said that Jackson's toe injury, yes, it is serious enough to have him on IR, but there is a very solid chance that he returns at that first possible window, which would be NFL Week 6, where Miami plays the Los Angeles Chargers at home. And that could be a massive week for Miami. Why? Because earlier last week, the Dolphins placed their prize free agent acquisition, James Daniels, on IR with a pec injury. That sidelined him for that same 4-game stretch we just named for Austin Jackson. So if both Jackson and Daniels could return in Week 6, that is a massive boost to this football team alongside the offensive line. And who knows? Between now and then, there's still 3 more games. Maybe Miami goes 2-1, and they're sitting at 2-3, although probably not going to be a good season for Miami. You could make the argument that there's a chance that the Dolphins could go on a run. I don't know. I'm just letting you know that 2 key contributors on this Dolphins offense could be returning in NFL Week 6. Staying on the injury front, it does not look like we will get our second safety, Ifeatu Melifonwu, this week against Buffalo. Ifeatu left the game with a calf injury, and it's not severe, like it's not a season ender, like some calf injuries could be, but with a soft tissue injury so close to that ankle and that Achilles, it's very likely he will miss this game on Thursday against the Bills. And it's very possible, if the calf injury is serious enough, to where maybe he doesn't go on IR, but he misses the next 2 weeks against the Jets and the Bills, and then he's able to fully recover, so there isn't a chance of re-aggravation or a even more significant injury of a torn Achilles, which means there needs to be a next man up. And who should that next man up be for the Miami Dolphins? Should it be rookie 5th-round pick Dante Trader Jr., or should it be the other free agent acquisition, Ashtyn Davis, type DT for Dante Trader, or type AD for Ashtyn Davis? Well, I have to imagine it will actually be the rookie Dante Trader Jr., considering through 2 weeks of the NFL season, he has outsnapped Davis in both games. Davis played about 11 snaps in week 1. He played 13 in week 2 against New England. Dante Trader Jr. played 22 snaps in week 1 and followed up with a 20-snap performance in week 2. So that is very consistent from week 1 to week 2 that Trader Jr. is that third safety. So if Melifonwu is ultimately hurt, I would have to expect that Trader Jr. becomes that starting safety opposite of Minkah Fitzpatrick, with Ashtyn Davis as safety number 3 and Elijah Campbell as that 4th safety and special teams ace. That is assuming that Melifonwu misses the game, which it seems like that is on pace for that. And I won't hate starting Dante Trader Jr. He has shown some good things in the run game, but he still has a lot to work on in terms of coverage in the passing game. But if he's going to be a long-term piece of this Dolphins defense, it's better to get him reps now so he can improve throughout the year and potentially get better as the year goes on. All right, move on to something else that Mike McDaniel said. We made a lot of noise this morning in our video, as well as yesterday in our reaction to the game, that the communication and process of getting plays into Tua Tagovailoa has just been off. Now, it has not just been off this first 2 weeks of the year. It's been this way ever since Mike McDaniel was the play caller for the Miami Dolphins. Well, McDaniel said that he met with staff and some other people to come up with a solution for operational issues that contributed to a delay of game, an illegal formation, a false start in the last 2 possessions of the game. Under 5 minutes to go, Dolphins trailing by 1 score. Well, I'm going to tell you what, folks. I'm certainly not going to hold my breath that Mike McDaniel and this staff figured out any solutions. Why? It's been happening for 4 years. He has had an opportunity to change the process, change the communication, to ensure that these pre-snap penalties would go away. They have not. And it just speaks to the level of stupidity from Mike McDaniel. Because what is the definition of insanity? Doing the same thing over and over again with expectations of different results. Well, we've done the same thing for 4 years now, and there has not been any results. This guy has got something up here that isn't working. You know what the process needs to be different, Mike? Probably you stop calling plays and stop being the head coach of this football team. That's just me, though. Coming up in just 1 second, should there be concern on rookie 37th overall pick Jonah Savaiinaea? I need to have a conversation. Before we have that convo, make sure you get started with Prize Picks, the daily fantasy sports app that I am on every day. You and I make decisions every day, and, well, good decisions on Prize Picks can get you paid where it's good to be right. It's so simple to play. Just pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections. If you get your picks right, you could cash in. Prize Picks won't screw you if a player gets injured. They offer injury reboots. If one of your players leaves the game in the first half and doesn't return, Prize Picks won't count it as a loss. They also invent the flex play, which means you can still cash out if your lineup isn't perfect, double your money even if one of your picks doesn't hit. And I talked with Jeremy Chuggs, our Houston Texans expert, in light of this game tonight on Monday Night Football. I got less than Bucky Irving rush yards, more than C.J. Stroud passing touchdowns, more than Riley Dixon punts, and less than Tommy Townsend punts. 4-player entry for tonight's action between the Buccaneers and Texans. Join me and the millions of others. Download the app today and use code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks. It's good to be right. Now we have to talk about that rookie left guard out of Arizona, Jonah Savaiinaea because it has not been a pretty start to his NFL career. It's a player that Miami traded up to get in the second round. Remember, they moved up from 48 to 37. They didn't give up any future picks, but they gave up picks later on in the draft, including their third round pick, to get up this guy. And I think you could have stayed put and grabbed a different type of offensive lineman. I think you could have traded up and taken a player like Will Johnson, who, despite getting hurt in yesterday's game between the Cardinals and Panthers, has been really solid to start his career. Obviously would have helped the secondary issue. But they went with Jonah. And it's been a struggle. Week 1 against the Colts, he allowed 2 pressures and was graded out pretty poorly of Pro Football Focus. Low 50 overall, mid 45 run block, and a 60 pass block. But it was abysmal in week 2. And no, that is not a typo. Yes, not a typo. A 0.0 pass block grade in week 2 against the Patriots. Now, is that a little bit harsh? Yeah, it is. Because he didn't allow a sack, technically. Didn't allow 4 pressures. He was actually the lowest grade offensive lineman in the entire NFL Week 2 slate, by the way. Now, when you watch the film, which I did, by the way, Milton Williams, the massive, $24, $25 million man over 3-4 years that New England signed for agency from Philly. So he's a really good player. Dominated Jonah Savaiinaea. And it was pretty bad. Now, Milton Williams on the day against New England had 2 sacks, 5 pressures, and a 14.8% pass rush win percentage. Dominated the interior offensive line. Now, he had 2 sacks, but none were credited to Jonah. There is one, I think, where Tua stepped up and tried to scramble in the pocket, and then the one where he tried to roll out to the left where Milton Williams got the credit for the sack. Milton had a great day. And you saw late in the fourth quarter that Patriots front, Clavion Jason, Milton Williams, Christian Barmore, Harold Landry, they were terrorizing Miami's O-line, man. Those last 2 drives, you could have capitalized if Tua was a little bit more sharp and Devon Achane didn't step out of bounds. But you got to give credit to that Patriots front 4 because they were harassing Larry Borum, Keon Smith, Aaron Brewer, Jonah Savaiinaea, and Patrick Paul. But when you're asking me if it's time to panic on Jonah, I think it's a little bit too early. I know some people are panicking, and that's understandable. And I do understand the panic. I will stay calm and wait to see how the rest of the year progresses, and if there aren't any improvements, well, then it's a conversation. But the reason why people are panicking is because when you trade up in the second round and take a player at pick 37, which is just 5 slots after the end of the first round. So this is a player that, in theory, could be categorized as just almost a first-round player. Like, you have high expectations for these draft picks, first-round and second-rounders, especially early second-rounders, to deliver results relatively quickly. And the fact that Jonah, over the past 2 weeks, has been a bottom 10 offensive lineman in football, it's certainly a concern. And now you do go up against 2 really good D-lines, right? You go up against a DeForest Buckner, a Grover Stewart in Indianapolis, a Barmore, a Milton Williams in New England. So yes, you're going up against 2 really tough interior defensive lineman duos, but you would have liked to see better results nonetheless. But let me know, what is your concern level on Jonah Savaiinaea? Scale of 1 to 10 for me down in the comments section. I'll be waiting to see your results. I would put my concern level at a 5, right in the middle. Not overly concerned, but I'm certainly monitoring. All right, final thing we'll talk about today. Ali Gordon, another rookie. McDaniel was asked about if he's going to play more because Gordon didn't play a ton, and he only had 1 carry in this game. He said that Gordon has had positive snaps, and the team is going to continue to build upon those positives, and maybe there's an increased workload for Ali Gordon this week. Now, I'll say this. Ali Gordon had a crucial mistake. Late in that fourth quarter, he had a false start. That was the dagger. That was actually after the Devon Achane stepping out of bounds. And that's where everything really snowballed for Miami in a negative way. because you had that maybe touchdown. We're going crazy on stream. They call it back because he steps out. Gordon false starts to make it 1st and 15. And then after the false start, you have the one thing that is the most mind-boggling out of everything that could have possibly happened, which is a delay of game. And then it's 1st and 20, and you're not able to recover. And then in that series of 4 plays, you couldn't get 20 yards, game over. But you look at the week 2 distribution on the ground, Miami only carried it 14 times. Still not a lot of carries for the Fins. 12 in week 1, 14 in week 2. De'Von Achane was not very successful on the ground. It's especially disheartening to see, considering I believe De'Von Achane had 16 yards on 2 carries. He had a 7-yard run to open the game, and then on the second drive of the game, he had a 9-yard run on a swing pass that was behind like a backward throw. So you take away those 2 runs early in the second quarter, he actually had 9 carries for 14 yards. Not great. They actually used Malik Washington more. He had 3 carries, with, by the way, 2 of them coming straight up in the backfield, where it was an inside zone and a pistol stretch carry. So like Malik Washington legitimately got more halfback carries than Ollie Gordon. It wasn't an end around. Wasn't a pitch. It was a legit run, handoff. So it's certainly interesting that Ollie Gordon, even though Jalen Wright has not been healthy, has gotten basically actually less carries through 2 weeks than Malik Washington. Because Washington had 1 in week 1, 3 in week 2, 4 total. Ollie had 2 in week 1, 1 in week 2. So he's only at 3. It's just odd. It's just odd. It's odd. But that'll do it for today's show. Make sure you are subscribed. And don't miss any content we put out. We'll have another video out tomorrow morning. We were live on Monday afternoon. If you missed it, well, make sure you subscribe because we're bringing you daily content. We'll be live as well on Thursday for Dolphins Bills. Subscribe and join us.